are 5 questions that people ask that I'm going to give you answers to. Hi, I'm Darcy from the Purposeful Pantry, and I'm here to share safe and practical dehydrating tips in order to be your dehydrating BFF to help you learn how to dehydrate like this. So let's get started on some of the questions. The very first one that I get asked probably most often, other than what kind of dehydrator should you get, that answer is whatever you can afford, whatever you like. I recommend Excalibur, Magic Mill, Nesco. Those are the great ones that are out there that are in the affordable price range that have various kinds of machines to offer everybody from stackable to cabinets. Any of them will work. Find a great price point for you wherever you are, and don't forget to check out your thrift stores and ask friends if they might have one sitting in the garage that they never use, because then you can get it. But just remember, return the favor with some home dehydrated goodies for them that they can enjoy as well. So the next thing you might ask is, do I have to add anything to my jars when I store them? No. As long as you dried it properly, you've tested it by conditioning, you've stored into a jar that is the appropriate size for what you have inside of it. So I don't know if you can see this here. This jar only has food up to this level right here. Okay, the rest of the jar is empty. The reason that is because I am actively working on restocking my pantry. So I have more soup mix that goes into that jar that I haven't finished to fill it up. That is temporary. It is not permanent storage for me for this jar. So I don't want to store this food in that jar for very long without having it full to make sure that it's stored properly. But so here's the deal. If you want to add a moisture absorber in there, you can. If you want to vacuum seal it, you can. I like this handy dandy little vacuum sealer because I can do 1 or 2 jars at a time, and I don't have to pull out my big machine in order to vacuum seal jars. I don't even do it if I have 5 or 6 jars to do, because this works just fine. I can put it on, walk away, do some other things, switch out jars, and it's fine, okay? But it's up to you what you want to use. You can also use O2 absorbers. I never use those, but you can do that if you want to put things back for long-term storage, which for dehydrated foods is anywhere from 2 to 3 years for most foods. Sometimes you'll get a little longer, sometimes you'll get less, but 2 to 3 years is the good optimal storage time for your food in jars. Yes, you can use an O2 absorber in a jar that you're not going to get in and out of, that you're going to put it away for a while. Then when you open it, you refill something, you use some of it. If you want to put it back, you can do that, but you have to replace the O2 absorber every time because you cannot reuse those. The moisture absorbers can be reused if you need to. Now, why would you want to use a moisture absorber? If you live in a humid environment where there's lots of moisture in the air and you're in and out of your jars very often, you can use this to mitigate the moisture that's introduced every time you open that jar. Those of you who live in the subtropics or in the tropics or maybe on the coast where it's much more humid than maybe in the desert region or in the southwest versus the south where there's a lot of humidity, you can use this to help control that moisture inside your jars. I use these primarily for fruit powders, which tend to stick, and I like to keep these in there to help control that moisture. But that's almost all I really use it for the most part anymore, because I've learned over time how to store my food that I don't really need this extra help, but it's there if you need it, okay? These run about $10 for a bag of 50. I use a 5-gram size Desiccan pack. That's a moisture absorber. They're the same thing, because that way I don't have to think about what size jar do I have, how big of a moisture absorber do I need. This can go in any size jar. Up to a gallon jar will work just fine on 5 grams, and as small as a pint jar. So I just use the one size. Okay, so that is the next question. Do you have to put anything in there? You don't have to. It can be a helpful tool, especially if you live in certain environments or you want to put something away for long-term storage and have that extra security to make you feel better, but it's not necessary. So the next question is time. Ignore your timer, okay? Often people will come to me and say, I had something set for what the manual said it should be dried at, and it's nowhere near dry. It's because the manual is wrong. Many times the manuals are written by people who don't really dehydrate. They just know how their machine works, and they've garnered information off the internet to say this is what it should be, and oftentimes it's not. Your home's humidity, the type of machine you have, like how powerful is it, what kind of make is it a cabinet or a stackable, what is in it, how much moisture was in the food when you started, how much did you pack your trays, all those kind of things make it to where doing anything by time shouldn't be. Okay, you just shouldn't do it by time. You do it by the feel of your food. Is it dry? Is it not dry? Did you let it cool off for a little while before you tested it out of the machine? Do that. When it's cooled, it's the best way to tell if something's really dry or not. Also, by how it feels. Is it tacky? Is it sticky? Those are, like for fruit leather, that's a good one. Is it just tacky on the top where you touch it, you got a little stick like a Post-it note, a little sticky? Or is it, or I should say, a little tacky on a Post-it note? Or is it sticky like a stamp where there's some, you're touching it and your fingers stick to it? That is not dry. A little tackiness on the surface is always okay because that means it's just those surface sugars that might still be soft. Don't worry about it. That's good. So another indication, can you break it in half? If it's a slice, something like that, you should be able to break it easily. If it is a small piece of thing, like a round, like a pea, a corn, vegetables that you cubed, when you drop it on a surface, does it plink or does it kind of go bleh? You need to have those indicators in your mind about what your food should be like. I always put that on any tutorial I have on my website or even on the videos, that this is what it should be like when it's done. I also have some resources for you there. I'll put links down below so you can go to them to kind of know what things should be like when they're finished. Never, ever, ever go by the time. The time means nothing more than, the timer went off and it might turn your machine off. That's all that means. So ditch the timer for anything to tell you if it's done or not. It just means some time has passed. Okay, another question I get asked often, especially at this time of year, it's going to come up a lot, is how do I keep my citrus colored like yours are? Because Darcy does pretty good at her citrus. The key of this is low and slow, and that could be a thing that you do for all of your food. The lower the temperature that you use, as long as you're being safe, the better that you're going to keep the quality of the color of most foods. You're also keeping more of the nutrients. So when I do citrus is often said to dry at 135 F, 57 C. Am I right? Yeah, 57 C. And that's too hot, because what happens is that the sugars that are in your orange with heat will start to brown. It happens with lemons, it happens with limes, it happens with grapefruit, it happens with some other fruits too. Strawberries, tomatoes, those kind of things can start to caramelize. You might want to say burn depending on how hot your machine gets and the amount of sugar that's in your food. So when you dry it at hotter temperatures, it makes it turn color. So dry it low. It's going to take longer. You may take 3 or 4 days on some batches to actually get your citrus good and dry at a low temperature, but you're going to keep this color. These are still oranges from last Christmas that I did that still have almost all their full color. Another question I'm asked a lot is, what temperature do you use? Well, use the recommended temperatures. Like I have this handy dandy sticker that's available in my shop, or you can get the magnet version of this as well. I list the temperatures of recommendations based on my experience about what you should dry things at, and you can go by that. But here's the thing to know. These temperatures don't matter. As long as it's not a safety issue for proteins where they need to be kept up in the 145 to 165 range, depending on the kind of protein you have. Some things you want to keep at a low temperature because of the safety issue, or because you want to keep active ferments alive, like sourdough, that you don't want to make it too hot for that sourdough to be active when you rehydrate it. Those are the only times that temperature really matters. If you want to do all of your vegetables at 115 or lower, do it. It's fine. As long as you have good air movement and it's not too humid in your environment, then you can do that and it will dry just fine. You'll keep all the nutrients. It'll be great. Now, another question I'm often asked is, do I have to blanch zucchini? You never have to blanch zucchini. It's not necessary. It's not recommended. There are a couple of books out there that recommend it, but you don't have to because it does not need to be blanched. However, things that do need to be blanched are root vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower. Off the top of my head, those are the ones that need it the most that you should do. And why do we blanch? We blanch, which is a process of dipping your food into hot water for a few moments, into cold water to stop the cooking process, and that helps keep the color of your food, and it can help with the texture. Celery is one of those things that it is recommended that you blanch it, but you don't have to. It falls into the, do I eat it raw? I can blanch it or not. But the thing is, just like with carrots, yes, you can eat carrots raw. And I don't know that you can see it in this because of the light that I have today. But up here at the very top, some of these carrots are starting to turn white. This was shredded carrots did I shred these or did I buy them shredded? I don't remember. But they weren't blanched. on purpose because I wanted something to show how foods will start to lose their color. And so these are starting to turn white, which means I need to use them up right now. They're losing their beta carotene because they weren't blanched. And that's what happens, okay? But also what can happen is it changes the texture of the food. Like celery is the one that's a big one that a lot of people don't like unblanched celery because once they rehydrate it into a soup or something, it's still always kind of hard for them. And the thing is that it wasn't blanched in the first place, which makes the rehydration process a lot easier, which makes the cooking process of then putting into a food go a little faster so it doesn't taste so hard. So if you don't like your celery dehydrated, rehydrated, and you didn't blanch it, try the blanching method. It might help. Another question I get asked about a lot is mushrooms because it's a factor in our family and it may be a factor in your family too. When you dry mushrooms, just like this, okay, here are dried mushrooms that I do constantly. They are kind of like I do once or twice a year, a mass amount of these to make sure we have them for the whole year. But when you rehydrate these, and in some cases I've seen people actually mention blanching mushrooms before dehydrating because of the same issue with the celery. I don't recommend that because it turns them a really dark color that's unappealing to me once you get them that waterlogged. You don't need to do that. But the process of rehydrating mushrooms and putting them into a dish makes them kind of chewy and not necessarily a pleasant mouthfeel for somebody who has those kind of texture issues. I do not like rehydrated mushrooms in this big form like this at all. So what I will do is I will chop them up. So these are small mushroom bits. Okay, I use my vegetable chopper, just put them in there, chop them up. You can use your food processor. I'm a little cautious doing that because they get too small for me. I like a little bite. I just don't like the big bite of a slice. So this makes it so much easier to dry. It dries quicker. You can store more into the jar this way as well. And when you rehydrate it, it has less of that weird, strange, chewy texture that mushrooms can get when they're rehydrated. This fixes it all. You still get the bulk, you still get the flavor, but you don't have that mouthfeel of a dried mushroom that can be unappealing. However, if you find that you've done a lot of mushrooms, you just don't like them no matter what you try, powder this stuff up. That is another question that I get asked a lot too, is I didn't like how something turned out and I threw it away. What should I have done? You powder that stuff, okay? When you make a vegetable powder, a mushroom powder, a green powder, any of those kind of powders, you can add those flavors into your food at any time, into smoothies, into everything that you cook on the stove, anything that you cook in the oven, in the slow cooker, in the Instapot, whatever you're using, you can sneak these extra vegetables or mushrooms or greens into that food, add nutrition, add flavor, and not have to have complaints from your family that I don't like that vegetable, I don't want to eat it. Well, it's in their food. Now, in our family, my family knows that I do this. So while I say sneak, I'm just putting extra things in there that I didn't say, this meal contains all of these ingredients. They know I do it. So I'm not cheating and I'm not lying to my family about the food that they're eating. All right, so the next question we have is, what do you do with your food? I don't do anything special with my food. Okay, so hear me out. Most of the time when I cook, I use all of my single ingredients to replace the fresh ingredients in some of the stuff that I do. I do a lot of stovetop meals. I do a lot of casseroles because it's the best way for me to feed my family of 5. Okay, so what I do is I take my vegetables that I would normally use in a meal, rehydrate them a little bit, put them in my skillet, brown them up just like I would do if I was doing from fresh. But what I saved was I didn't have to prep all that food, okay? Because my vegetables are already chopped up, my onions, my garlic, my peppers, anything that I want to do like that is already ready to go. Rehydrate, put into a skillet, brown it up just like I would before, add all the rest of the ingredients to what I'm doing, and go for it. But a lot of people like to do things like meals in a jar. So this is my egg roll in a jar recipe that you can put in Mylar bags. If you don't want to put it in your jars, you can do it that way too. That all I have to do is pour this into my skillet, add some broth, let it rehydrate, let it cook, and it's good to go. But this contains ground beef. Yes, I do keep ground beef on my shelf, but I know this is not shelf stable forever. So the ones that I put ground beef into tend to be short term that I try to use pretty quickly. But I have the recipe for this on my website. I'll leave it down the link below. I've also got a video. I'll leave that same link so you can see it. But this is how you can make meals in a jar. So what questions do you have about dehydrating that I can answer for you? I'm happy to answer everything. In the comments below, just leave a question and I'll answer it for you, or I'll give you a link to a video that I've already done that explains all of it. So I make sure that you understand the safe and practical way to dehydrate so that you can store food in your pantry for your family for any time that you need it. So until I see you again next time, remember that nevertheless she preserved. I'll see you again soon.